problems began in 1965. Write Howard Cohn and Barbara Newman for Rolling Stone, for its December 1st, 1977 edition, during a routine inventory, U.S. government inspectors discovered that a substantial amount of enriched uranium, enough for several atomic bombs, was missing from a Pennsylvania nuclear plant. Newman and Cohn write that the amount of material unaccounted for was 194 pounds, larger by far than any previous known discrepancy at other U.S. nuclear facilities, while also observing that approximately 22 pounds of enriched uranium are needed to make the smallest functional bomb. The numbers snowballed as there appeared to be a massive leak at the plant. As of October 31, 1965, there were an astounding 382 pounds unaccounted for. By early 1967, the Atomic Energy Commission had re-inventoried the plant and found an additional 190 pounds unaccounted for, or 572 pounds in all. According to the Rolling Stone sources, Israel continued to receive NUMEC uranium during the 1965-1966 period, despite increased U.S. scrutiny. Newman and Cohn further quote George Murphy, Jr., then executive director of the Joint Committee on Atomic Energy. The JCAE was the atomic energy regulator of the U.S. Congress. With regard to the Commission's estimate that 366 of the 572 pounds had been lost through normal plant operations, Murphy ridiculed the Atomic Energy Commission's conclusion that 127 pounds of liquid uranium had run off into the nearby Kiski River as a possibility that could be entertained only if the plant had run 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, since before the Revolutionary War. Suspicions arise when considering NUMEC's financials since, early on, this lost uranium was costing them millions in fines. In September 1966, the Atomic Energy Commission's press office revealed losses over many contracts have totaled approximately 178 kilograms of uranium-235, having a value of about $2 million. It seems curious the company could afford such an expense given NUMEC's financial data, provided by Roger J. Mattson, who led a 1977 investigation of the NUMEC affair for the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, the Atomic Energy Commission's federal regulator. The $2.2 million in total charges was more than 4 times the Atomic Energy Commission's 1967 budget for research and development on nuclear material safeguards. The $2.2 million exceeded the initial capital used to form NUMEC. The $2.2 million was nearly 10 times the company's net income in its fiscal year ending September 30th, 1965. The $2.2 million was more than 50% of the company's long-term debt of $4.3 million at the end of its fiscal year 1965. However, $2.2 million was a bargain for securing the material needed for a fledgling nation to build its first atom bombs. Indeed, John Haddon, CIA station chief in Tel Aviv from 1963 to 1967, throughout the NUMEC affair, would testify to Congress that NUMEC had been an Israeli operation from the beginning, but the CIA had not been able to follow the money trail. The agency thought NUMEC had been financed by the owner of Apollo Steel Mill, Israeli War of Independence veteran David Lowenthal. In fact, Mr. Lowenthal himself was also known to law enforcement. David L. Lowenthal, who is reportedly closely associated with high-ranking officials of the Israeli government, fought for Israel as a freedom fighter in 1956 and who currently travels to Israel on the average of approximately once each month. Information known to the Bureau previously, whose Pittsburgh field office noted the same, and additionally, that Lowenthal is closely associated with high-ranking officials of the Israeli government and recently observed shaking hands with Prime Minister Ben-Gurion and Defense Minister Moshe Dayan in Israel. In February 1976, Carl E. Duckett briefed a small group from the U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission. Duckett served as CIA Deputy Director for Science and Technology. He was also CIA's leading expert on Israel's nuclear weapons program. One of those commissioners present was Victor Galinsky, writing years later, what Duckett confirmed, to everyone's astonishment, was that the CIA believed that the nuclear explosives in Israel's first several bombs, about 100 kilograms of bomb-grade uranium in all, came from material that was missing at a U.S. naval nuclear fuel plant operated by the Nuclear Materials and Equipment Corporation in Apollo, Pennsylvania. The consequences are revealed by U.S. Army Lieutenant Colonel Werner Farr, writing in 1999 a history of the Israeli nuclear weapons program for the U.S. Air Force Counterproliferation Papers, a series prepared for policymakers. Farr writes, "Before the 1967 Six-Day War, they felt their nuclear facility threatened and reportedly assembled several nuclear devices. By the 1973 Yom Kippur War, Israel had a number of sophisticated nuclear bombs, deployed them, and considered using them. Additionally, Israel has most probably conducted several nuclear bomb tests." Israel's nuclear capability was known to CIA. A summary of the February 1976 Duckett briefing from the Nuclear Regulatory Commission notes that Duckett had related that CIA had drafted a national intelligence estimate on Israel's nuclear capability in 1968. He then showed it to CIA Director Richard Helms. Helms told him not to publish it, and he would take it up with President Johnson. Mr. Helms later related that he had spoken to the president, that the president was concerned, and that he had said, "Don't tell anyone else, even Dean Rusk and Robert McNamara." Indeed, President Lyndon Johnson found the information so sensitive that it be kept from Secretary of State Dean Rusk and Secretary of Defense Robert McNamara. The scale of Israel's nuclear arsenal by April of 1976 was reported in Time magazine. At a briefing for a group of American space experts in Washington recently, an official of the Central Intelligence Agency estimated that Israel had between 10 and 20 nuclear weapons available for use. The CIA official was none other than Carl Duckett himself, who let the information slip to members of the American Institute of Aeronautics and Astronautics. In fact, Time has learned, Israel possesses a nuclear arsenal of 13 atomic bombs, assembled, stored, and ready to be dropped on enemy forces from specially equipped Kafir and Phantom fighters or Jericho missiles. These weapons have a 20-kiloton yield, roughly as powerful as those that obliterated Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Describing how close the world came to nuclear war, Time reports that after midnight on the morning of October 9th, during the Yom Kippur War, Defense Minister Moshe Dayan solemnly warned Premier Golda Meir, "This is the end of the Third Temple." Mrs. Meir thereupon gave Dayan permission to activate Israel's doomsday weapons. As each bomb was assembled, it was rushed off to waiting Air Force units. Before any triggers were set, however, the battle on both fronts turned in Israel's favor. The 13 bombs were sent to desert arsenals where they remain today, still ready for use. As reported in the Christian Science Monitor, Secretary of State Henry Kissinger even received a message from Brezhnev stating that Moscow was contemplating unilateral military steps in the Middle East. And late at night on October 24, 1973, American troops all over the world were put on alert. DEFCON 3, the highest state of armed forces readiness for peacetime conditions. The year before, the CIA judged the veracity of the Nukes story in a memo titled "Possible Diversion of Weapons-Grade Nuclear Materials to Israel by Officials of the Nuclear Materials and Equipment Corporation." As CIA put it, diversion of special nuclear materials to Israel by Dr. Shapiro and his associates is a distinct possibility. Lead-coated or nickel-plated, it would present no radiation hazard and could have easily gone by diplomatic pouch or Israel merchant ship or even El Al Airlines. Transportation of diverted material to Israel would have been a simple matter. Indeed, in a top-secret strategy document from July 1969 from Henry Kissinger to President Nixon, there is circumstantial evidence that some fissionable material available for Israel's weapons development was illegally obtained from the United States by about 1965. This is one program on which the Israelis have persistently deceived us and may even have stolen from us. This allegation was echoed in an embarrassing leak of the CIA's Special National Intelligence Estimate for 1974, which was released in almost unredacted form in 1978. We believe that Israel has already produced nuclear weapons. Israel has gone to great effort to obtain uranium concentrate. It has sought this material clandestinely, followed by a redaction. Another CIA source from April of 1977 adds further doubt to the Atomic Energy Commission's official story. A note from Anthony A. Lapham, the CIA's general counsel to CIA Associate Deputy Director for Operations Theodore Shackley, reads, "As I understand it, the investigations of NUMEC are related to the possibility that nuclear material may have been diverted, and apparently at least the Energy Research and Development Administration has concluded there is no evidence of diversion. However, that conclusion is difficult to square with our intelligence information." An amusing example from the same year, a CIA memorandum for the record containing a summary of Carl Duckett's testimony to congressional staffers. When asked how stolen uranium could conceivably be transported out of the United States, Duckett responded he had no first-hand knowledge of the topic, followed by redactions of the remainder of his 3-page-long response. Investigations of Dr. Zalman Mordecai Shapiro focused attention on his ties to Israeli intelligence from the beginning, as we've seen. In October 1968, FBI Pittsburgh reports a request from a group of Israelis to visit the NUMEC plant at Apollo. One of them was Dr. Avraham Hermoni, a member of the Israeli intelligence service, who was known to be engaged in the establishment of a technical intelligence network in the United States, and that prior to his assignment as scientific counselor of the Israeli Embassy, Washington, D.C., he was intimately connected with Israeli efforts to develop nuclear weapons in his capacity as Technical Director, Armament Development Authority, Ministry of Defense. Another visitor was the notorious Rafi Eitan, later spy handler of Jonathan Pollard. Interestingly enough, the NUMEC affair is apparently not taboo in the Israeli press. Indeed, when in 2015 the Jerusalem Post published an article on the life of now 88-year-old Eitan, they included in his career summary involvement in the diversion of highly enriched uranium from an American nuclear fuel plant. The Apollo affair,